With the AAA industry continuing to be analogous to an elderly syphilitic dairy cow that had to be harnessed to the ceiling after its last functioning leg fell off, the rest of the year's looking pretty bleak for milk enthusiasts. But it's fucking A1 Prime cut season if you're into remakes and remasters. We've got Silent Hill 2 coming up, Lollipop Chainsaw Remaster, Epic Mickey Remaster. I'm sure that'll appease the fans who were clamouring for that, possibly even both of them. And of course the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, or Drr. And it occurred to me that while I've reviewed Dead Rising 2, 3 and 4, I never did the original because it predated zero punctuation. Surreal to think of anything predating zero punctuation, besides the fucking Cretaceous period. You want to know how old Dead Rising 1 is? When it first came out, people complained they couldn't read the tiny whiny HD text on their CRT televisions. That's how old. Also, they couldn't hear the audio very well because of the fucking Spanish Civil War going on outside their window. I'm very fond of the Dead Rising series, and the original is one of the best. Despite its age, there still isn't anything much like it, and I like the way almost all its idiosyncrasies sprang fully formed right out of the gate. You play as Frank West, daring photojournalist who's covered wars, you know, and who looks, and I say this with affection, like every single part of his face got stung by bees at the same time. Frank helicopters himself into the heart of a zombie-infested Midwestern town and ends up stranded at the weirdly massive shopping mall. He's got 72 hours before his ride comes back to pick him up, and whether you spend that time following the critical path of story missions to uncover the truth behind the catastrophe, or piss about in a gingham dress ramming your tricycle into the shins of the undead, is entirely up to you. I suppose you could call it a sandbox, but only if the sandbox in this metaphor has had all the sand replaced with used heroin needles and angry drunken sailors, because the game is wantonly, some might say gleefully, unfair. You start out with 4 measly health points that a crowd of zombies can chew through in seconds. You're obliged to escort survivors along circuitous routes back to base who all have the self-preservation instincts and pathfinding ability of a moth in a disco. And then there are the unique psychopath boss fights against quirky people who all went off the deep end when the apocalypse started, are all weirdly physically large, and can all stunlock you like you're a swing ball set. But you know something? I find Dead Rising quite easy. Why? Because I've played it a lot. And having done so, I know to hightail it to the coffee shop as soon as you leave the security room, to grab 3 orange juices and the secret katana from the top of the awning. It's a game almost unique in the way it's built around learning and experimenting. You can restart the game at any point with your levels and upgrades still intact, just to drive that point home like a gumball machine into a decomposing solar plexus. But I had an even easier time playing Drr because of all the little gameplay tweaks filing its more blatantly unfair points down. Okay, for the people like me who enjoyed the original and who need to get out of here quickly to replace their catheter bags, let's go over what remaster means in this case. Well, there's a lot of focus on the visuals. It's replaced all the characters with high-def models that make Frank look somehow even more disquieting, with all the extra pores and wrinkles giving everyone a vibe of suffering from severe dehydration. They've also added auto-saving, marginally less moronic NPC pathfinding, and made Frank's special moves easier to crack off. The dodge roll in particular making it a lot easier to escape stunlock hell. Now it's one button press. Dodge rolling, high difficulty. Is Dead Rising a Souls-like now? If coffee creamer counts as Estus maybe, and if Frank could be persuaded not to chug the whole gallon in one, the fat bastard. I'm pretty sure the damage on the mini chainsaw has been nerfed. That was always my go-to. It used to fuck up psychopaths like a Dead by Daylight balance patch. It's a tad bit chippier now, and there are a few notable changes reflecting a desire to switch the drive shaft to manual from problematic, if you catch my drift. You no longer get bonus erotica points for taking pictures up the skirts and down the cleavages of frightened female survivors, thus depriving the one female main character who hangs out in the safe room with her tits hanging out of the one thing that made her not completely bloody useless. And there's a mandatory psychopath fight near the end against a weirdly physically large Chinese man that's been changed to yet another weirdly physically large white American dude. Comes to something, when even the over-the-top gonzo disembowel zombies in your underpants games can't be a bit cheeky as well. In all seriousness, yay for acknowledging past dodginess, I suppose, but the way you do that is you put a hand-wringing disclaimer at the start, putting Speedy Gonzales in the proper context of its time. You don't remake the whole thing with Speedy Gonzales wearing a bowler hat and talking in a Glaswegian accent. Get out of here with this Star Wars Remastered Edition revisionist history bullshit. So all that aside, how does Dead Rising 1 hold up? Well, there's still a lot I like. I get the sense the mall was mapped out before the designers figured out how the game would work, and that's probably why every time you escort a survivor home you have to take them through one specific door, a warehouse, around an S-bend of shelves, up an elevator, across a rooftop, round the garden path and up a passing rhinoceros's bum crack. It lends an adorably janky experimental feel, like student filmmakers trying to pass off various angles of the corner of their dad's unfinished basement as the depths of an alien-infested moon colony. Even with the steps to make the game easier and the removal of racist bits so you don't keep dropping your controller to clutch your pearls, I imagine it'll still be punishing for completely new players used to modern games, leading them around by the nose with big obvious objective markers pointing directly away from hungry zombies' mouths, and frankly that thought makes me titter. But while I still like the Dead Rising formula, I think that formula was perfected in Dead Rising 2, with the addition of combo weapons. Without that, the process of learning to maximize one's offensive potential consists of figuring out where the mini chainsaw respawns and then spending the whole game making weird braying sounds with your lips, and the air kinda goes out of Dead Rising 1 near the end of the main story when the special forces arrive. Who'd have thought a game largely focused on sailing across oceans of zombies on the good ship Lawnmower would lose something after all the zombies bugger off, to be replaced by a load of spongy gun-toting fun police? Fact is, the existing Steam version was fine, with visuals that didn't bounce around the uncanny valley like a ping-pong ball made of grotesque wrinkly flesh, so from a philosophical perspective, I question the point of this whole revision revisionist remastering process, especially with a subject whose original appeal lay largely in innovations that have since been improved upon. Boy, what an interesting game, one might say. I wonder how future games will build upon these ideas. Well, I imagine they'll milk it for sequels for a while until one cuts out all the unique idiosyncrasies for the sake of broader appeal and turns the main character into an insufferable cockwomble. Oh, you're such a buzzkill, Causality.